Okay, starting again. I have a feeling. Yeah. Okay. So actually, it's going to start here. So recall that. Um, Recall two facts. One is that. Let's get this. I think I'm feeling I need to refer to Jimbo Thomas Green's report here, but on January 28th, 1942, Kuhn's trial took place, lasted 3 days. Recall on January 15th that the FBI had planned to tell Kuhn that his trial was taking place, and eventually actually tell them that he was going to be shot by musketry on the 16th, or the 17th, and that he was found guilty. He doesn't know any better, right? He doesn't know he's got to. He probably the court would probably give him the dignity of being present at his own trial, and that they weren't going to tell him that they were going to bring his wife, but they're going to let him find that out on his own, as if they didn't want him to know. Put him in a cell next door, coincidentally, and allow them to speak, and see if they can get any information out of him. And so now this is them spying. This is and they eventually did find out about this. They questioned him about some of his comments after the trial was over, and let him know that he was had his conversation listened upon. And later on, when he asks for to assert his rights, he specifically states that he believes that part of this conversation actually tended to show his innocence. And I'll go over that now with a little bit of deeper understanding. I'll comment some on some of these comments. Of course, it was these people were basically, there were a couple guys hiding behind a wall somewhere that were in earshot. That, depending on how loudly the two talked, was how well they were going to hear him. So let's go back to this. This is on January 16th, 1942. I don't know exactly what part, if this is part of another set of documents or whatever, and there's some redaction, but not enough to really. I don't. It was just who prepared the memo, and whatever. Okay. Both Otto and Friedel Kuhn were escorted by military guard from their detention cells, U.S. Immigration Station, on January 16, 1942, separately to their adjoining cells at Schofield Barracks. Upon reaching Schofield, they were placed in the cells in such a manner that each was cognizant of the fact that the other occupied the next adjoining cell. Following is quoted from memoranda prepared by someone, German interpreter of the Office of Naval Intelligence, and has observed the time indicated in the log as Greenwich Median Time. Now, this is, I don't know where the Schofield Barracks are, don't know what time this actually was for them, but whatever. Blank of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and blank arrived at the Schofield Barracks to maintain oral surveillance. It means they could hear them on subjects after their transfer from Honolulu. We arrived at about 1100 and completed technical and other arrangements after the surveillance, together with blank of the Army Contact Office. A translation from the German of all conversation that was distinct enough to catch, and as a running log follow. The first column represents the time at various intervals where checks were made. F stands for Friedel, O for Otto. Interpolations and explanations will be in brackets. The dotted line will indicate missing words or sentences. So, at 11:55, Otto Kuhn arrives, takes them 10 minutes. They put him in solitary confinement. And then Friedel arrives 3 hours and 3.5 hours later, thereabouts. And she figures out he's there. And then she says to Friedel, "Are you sure you haven't done something?" Which why the fuck are we here? He says, "No." She says, "Do you believe that? Are you sure?" Couldn't hear him. And then she says, "Man alive," or like, "Holy shit." What did you say? Then Friedel says, "I just made a written statement." And I haven't seen that written statement. It's English so far, and then they switch to German. What have we come to? Something they couldn't hear Otto saying, "What a stupid thing you've done." Otto says, "You will get out of it all. There were 30,000 crowns. What about the money?" And she says, "What did you write?" And then he says something, and they think it's a complete confession. And she goes, "Then they know everything." And he goes, "In 1935, I bought the..." And then she starts going off. Then you have changed your opinions completely?" He said, "We were going on the rocks. We're ruined. We're sunk." And then she says, "You had no reason whatsoever to sign your name in such a document." You know what? It's true. It's true. Although, they did have... What they did have on him were the cables. But he didn't know that until January 3rd. He provided all that extra information without ever really emphasizing... Remember, without ever really emphasizing that he was trying to just get them to deliver money for them. Con them into being their money mules out of Japan. As if everybody else on this earth is placed to be their servants and couriers. Okay. And they're like that. People that spent money at the lavish pace they did, supposedly. I don't know. Actually, I can't really say lavish. I'm using the words of the FBI. Okay. He says, "But what could I have done?" as if the FBI was really fully informed. I mean, they had a lot of information from Admiral McCarthy. And then she says, "Rubbish." He claimed, and then he says something about wanting the money for her, and that's why he did what he did. He says, "What crazy things you've done." And then he says, "You remember what the Japanese consul sent me? That's the $14,000, the other 10. She said, "There was no letter, no evidence connected with it. Didn't you..." She probably said, "Burn it." "Didn't you? Oh, God." And then he says something. Then something redacted, asked me whether I had received a letter from the Japanese consul or not. And I said, "No." He says, "The consul, the Japanese." And then they discuss their children. Then the guard shows up. She says, "No one believes me." Then he says, "Shall I tell them what we received?" And then, parentheses, "This sounds important evidence of Otto's withholding or attempting to withhold information, a bit of evidence which Friedel may know about." She says, "From the beginning I was afraid." But she said, "Did you do anything?" And to me, let's get back to that. They think there's more information to be found, but they're hiding behind the wall listening to all this. What I'm saying is that if it's true that they had talked about actually fooling the Japanese consulate into delivering funds to them in exchange for a future promise to spy for them which they actually never performed upon. And it was funds that was actually theirs, and they just had no way to get it. So in a way, they did have rights to it, and in another way, they don't have a, no one has a right just to have other people just to do their bidding. So, it is a gray area, but basically what she's saying here is, did you actually give them information? He says, no, nothing at all. The FBI wondered where I got the money, and I didn't know what to say. Presumably an account of the sort for the recent, last 14 or 18. Then she says, through the consulate? This could hardly have been feigned astonishment. At this point, it became very clear that Friedel was either one of the world's best actors, or she was hearing of the source of money for the first time. For utter amazement, the statement above, no, nothing at all, probably means that although the signals were agreed upon, they were never actually used for purposes they were intended. Otto is rightly or wrongly trying to lead Friedel to believe that he thought up the signals for the money, but that he did not use them a single time. Okay, I agree with that conclusion. They don't think she was acting. And it could be that she was never informed as to how the money was delivered for the sale of land in Germany that was her land. That she never knew that it was delivered through the consulate. And now they look back at the facts. It was an arrangement between him and Baron Kigogo. So, yeah, that really, but there's no other way to get the money out, because the son-in-law was saying, you can't have your wife come here. You can't come here. I can't send it to you. You need a third party to send this. Because they're watching me, and I'm going to end up in a concentration camp if they figure out that I'm circumventing German law. Okay. Then there's an indistinct something saying about the Japanese consul contacted Otto in October, and if we go back to, I think it was one of those two deliveries. It was July 1941, September 1940. So I don't know what was going on in October. The guy was probably pissed off that he'd turned, once again, had turned down their request to spy. Some discussion of Hans and his role in the matter. Not clear, but why did you write all that? Now, Hans was the purported fiance of Ruth Carson Moore. At least I thought I read that somewhere, but perhaps I misread it. And she said, but why did you write all that? That's a good question. You need to write pages and pages of details of, just whatever. I thought it was better to do. She says, that sounds very funny. Yes, it sounds funny, but it's true. She goes, I hate these, I hate them, but you kept this all a secret from me. That's the worst of all. Why did you write all that? I saw a paper that indicates that you had told everything. They tricked you. When did it happen? He goes, 1934 and 1935, and again in 1936. Now that I don't understand. That I do not understand. That he had no reason. The money had come from his aunt in 34-30. So this is weird. This I don't understand, actually. That's at odds with the evidence. There's no She goes, I had no idea by the 24,000 marks. That's the 10 plus the 14, and they're not marks and they're dollars. How could you ever have done such a thing? Friedel sighs over and over again. This is perhaps the most distressing part of Otto's confession as far as she is concerned. A good assumption is that some sort of extortion or blackmail scheme is ordered to replenish Otto's depleted funds. No. It wasn't extortion or blackmail. It was a cat and mouse game. 1934-5, Otto either lost 24,000 marks. No. It's the 10 plus the 14. Trusted him. Okay, that's nothing. It's just bullshit. Okay. What about Ruthie? Which is... He asked about... I don't know who Ruthie is. And she goes, did you do it for money? Did you do it in 1936? Then you couldn't hear what he says. Another long sigh. She realizes the enormity of the danger. How much did you pay? I don't understand that. If I'd only imagined it was like that, you gave a paper indicating that you had worked, presumably for him, yes. When did you speak to him? In October, the 25th, and again the 2nd of December. For some reason, he's misstating the date of when he went down to first attempt to send, or he's misstating it to her. She probably would have been pissed off if he said that he waited until a few weeks ago to try to get the money sent to her son. I don't know which way it goes. The second the money was delivered, this is Leopold. So see how, there he is. She was told he's going to be shot tomorrow. And but he's lying to her and saying that he's went on the 25th to send money to Leopold, and then on the 2nd of December, which is probably right, when it was finally actually delivered. She wants to know if the money was delivered. And he says 4 months ago when Homburg sent the money. That's important. So that 4 months ago, this is January, and October. I'm tired of keep looking these dates up. There it is, October. October is the 14,000. I don't understand. I mean, he said, how many were there? 4, blah, 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 louder. I was so scared that when you went to send the $500, I was so scared. And she's angry. I know that you didn't do it and that you shouldn't have done it. Dinner. And she was crying and sobbing. And she says, what do you propose to do? And then she said, the FBI will take care of everything. And she goes, what about our boys? Oh, they will be all right. She says, I wish I was dead. Don't you go on like this on our last day. Shouldn't have been like this. Everything that's done is done. She goes, I've already gone through so much. God. Look after the children, crying more and more. And maybe he cut a deal with the FBI. I'll write out this confession if you leave my wife out of it. That part might be redacted, Because it seems kind of odd that, based on the stories we're hearing today about this family, that, even little Hans Joachim put on his little sailor boat outfit supposedly and went on boats to collect information. Um, just I've absolutely no evidence of that in anything that I've seen in these documents. Um, 6 year old kid. Um, my God. And to this day, she's still said to be culpable of a conspiracy run by the whole family. But whatever. I wish I were dead. Should have been like this. You look after the children. She cries more and more. So she's being terrorized. And he's terrorized and having to accept the fact or the lie that he is going to die tomorrow. He's being terrorized here. Just so they might get some additional information about God knows what. And this is inhumane. He says, you will get out and you must hold yourself for the children's sake. It's perfectly clear throughout that he is calm and resigned to die tomorrow. There we go. That's kind of fucked up. We must tell each other goodbye. We don't know, haven't, some kind of redaction. Yes, it is so unimportant. I was so afraid that Dave, when you went to the Japanese consulate, that you had the possibility of anything happening was ruled out. Did I tell you that? Certainly you did. It's the truth. You shouldn't have returned it at the Japanese consulate. You should not have telegraphed and telephoned, done all those things that aroused suspicion. What she means by that is just constantly haranguing the Japanese consulate for assistance to send $500 to Leopold. Did you receive the note from Aunt Bertha, whatever? You know what you received, don't you? 12,800 crowns. So just evidently, these guys had other sources of money from the family, but I guess he glosses over that. They don't know about it, so he doesn't mention it. This is whatever it is. These guys they spend money like they're just hemorrhaging money. So what? 12,000 crowns. I mean, $12,800 actually. Monies and death were mixed up in this part. Only further questioning can piece. It could be that what he's referring to is someone died and there was an inheritance, but 12,800 crowns is far short of $35,000. $12,800 is, someone was, I think, you know what he's talking about here actually, he had some money left over. He might have had some money left over he wasn't able to take with him out of Germany. And he's probably talking about the fact that he left Germany and he couldn't stay in Germany lest he be killed. That seems to be right. This is just all horse shit here. Money misdeeds is mixed up and whatever. No evidence of that. Um, then he mentions some woman. Did she die? And then Friedel says, "Oh no, I saw her in 1935. I flew home in 1932. In 1936, I saw her. Blah blah blah." He says, "Well, did you see her in 1937?" And then she says, "Mother was dead in 1930." So the money was from her mom. She says, "You were 52. There are 42,000 dead." Don't know what that means. Then he goes, "There were 30,000 marks." You know what it is? I think I know what happened now. Okay, so they were sending 50 marks, he said, a month to their son, Leopold, in Germany. Apparently, I think when Mrs. Kuehn actually, it's probably why she stashed away some of her money. When she went back to Germany to get her youngest son, Hans Joachim, to bring back to Hawaii, her mom died. And the result was and I think she was later told that she brought back too much of the money with her. So that was never mentioned. That extra income was never mentioned, but makes it actually more believable for the lavish lifestyle they were leading. But basically, and then when she realized she had taken some of her son's portion, she started to make arrangements to make payments to him. And I think he was saying that's what's left, that you have to pay him. Because I've, sent him the rest until we weren't allowed to do so. Okay. So I don't know what this cannot be dead. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. She says nobody will believe me. She says the FBI. He says the FBI will. Not really. She says, I'm so very sorry for you. You can never get out of this. You shouldn't have written it. You shouldn't have told them anything, and that's true. You made yourself unhappy. Mia very unhappy, and the children unhappy. I wish we were all dead. I'm feeling so bad. And then there was a long argument over when she died. That probably had an effect on some of the choices he made. How much he had to pay her son. And then she is crying and says, "You are to blame." He goes, "Wipe your tears." He goes, "I have no idea. And they talk about some aunts and addresses. She goes, "In 1937, my mother died. We bought it in 1936. That's a house they're talking about." Very empathetic. And how do I know that? I think that he was being told by Leopold he had to send money to, I don't know what's going on. There's something they don't mutually understand, it's clear. Very empathetically, each word separately, when did she die? They're clearly talking about her mother. Why, it's just all about money, not about how the dude's going to die tomorrow. Then a letter came from your son. You told him about Japan? Yes. He goes, "Oh, that's all past now. As long as you're paying my son Leopold." Then he says, I don't know, what I've done is what I've done. Then he says that the children are going to go back to Germany. You know very well that shouldn't be. You have no reason to do that. They made some deal, in other words. They told them what was going to happen to the family, and in exchange for not killing, or something crazy like not killing them. Of course, it would probably never happen. He thought he made a deal. He got duped into writing a confession, basically. He was to go back to Germany. Friedel thought she was going to be shot, but he tells her not to worry because she hasn't done anything. Yeah. That's why he made the confession letter, so she wouldn't be shot. Asked to sleep. No, I felt that something was coming when the whatever broke. I said that the major could come with whatever he had, for the mattresses. And what do you say to my going? Asked her if she slept. Hard coughs. Let's see. Nothing comprehensible here. How long is the guard on duty? She wasn't ready to believe he was going to die. What did you dream about? Something in writing. Did they find it? Can I shave, wash my teeth? You know. Change of watch. And then there's continuation and more family affairs. Reference to doesn't understand. It's very complicated what's happened. How he's been able to survive this long. YMCA makes reference to an undercover which took place. Hamburg referenced money to pass through hands December 2nd, which was the $500 to go back. $3,000 cash mentioned several times. She brought back $9,000 with her in 40. It was $6,000. Maybe he got that wrong, and then the down payment was $9,000 instead of $6,000. You know, who knows? Try to get Leopold out of Germany. Talks about Ruth. Then Otto says, "When do I get my trial?" Don't worry, you'll get a fair trial. Yeah, really? I know that. You'll get a fair trial. Who said so? The sergeant. Friedel says, everything's been decided. She's right. The U.S. government will give you a fair trial. I have a feeling we do not get a trial anymore. Don't be foolish. They do not believe a word I say. I had to state to the American consul where I was in 28. The hell? Something's redacted. I don't know what it is. More talk about December 2nd and October and the complicated land transaction. Are you sure you did not tell the story to anyone, a storekeeper? She can't believe he just confessed for no fucking reason. She belches. Can't sleep. Tell me what's going on. They will shoot me. They do not believe me. Can't stand it any longer. Can't stand it here. I need to take a shower. Talking about the children. She wants to wash her panties, you know. Ruth sang so beautifully yesterday. feels he will get complete rest from the whole affair if I can only wash myself. She is pretty selfish, I would say. God damn. Okay, so this is commentary. So just prior to the time Otto transfer of the quarters, given a physical examination. So yeah, we're still, yeah, of course, give a physical examination. That means we treated them well. No physical ailments. What is this, a Geneva Convention rundown? Regarding examination, fetal doctor, historical, whatever. They eat at certain times. It's like a POW memo. Otto left, at which time Otto left 5% of the Japanese colonists in Germany. Miss Kuehn remained in her car. During the line, according to her statements, she had not been with her husband on the first visit there in November. She insisted that the action of the consulate in extending this favor to them by transmitting the 5% did not seem strange to her. Yeah, it didn't. They're the kind of people that just spend money like wildfire, get used to people waiting on them all the time, and expect people will continue to do so and have no second thought about it. Their husband had led her to believe the money was being sent through Yokohama Specie Bank, and yeah, that's true. That's what he said, too. Ms. Kuehn states that at the time her husband advised her this was a complete surprise to her and was hardly believable. Were brought to his attention. Questions developed. Okay. And then Ms. Kuehn looked at the trends and said that in some cases what she'd said had misinterpreted, and I believe it. Did, however, confirm her husband's statements to agents regarding activities in Germany, which are not being restated here. Interview are being retained. Okay. She furnished the following information, which is not previous stuff. Otto's father, now deceased, was a doctor of chemistry. Okay. Otto's brother is in Germany. 2 doctorate degrees. Otto was preparing to leave Germany in 1935. His Aunt Martha, who resides in Germany, was quite wealthy, arranged to deposit considerable funds, which all amounted to around $42,000 in an Amsterdam bank for Otto. So this differs with why would he lie about an aunt in Sweden? Why didn't he just say that it was for his aunt in Germany? Probably because he worried that the Americans would tell the Germans. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but the deposits in Amsterdam were actually made by an aunt of Otto's residing in Sweden out of her own funds. Okay. While Aunt Martha in Germany made investments of identical amount in Germany under the name of the aunt in Sweden and was interested in making some German investments. In recent years, the only adopted daughter of Martha died, and therefore Otto and his brother will share equally in Aunt Martha's estate in Germany upon her death. I see. She's got another wealthy relative, ready to help them out. Regarding what Friedel advised, she was about 17 years of age. She met a person Germany later, expected to marry, then never. That before the time over the arrangement was broke off, she became pregnant, gave birth to her son Leopold. Serving Nazi government. Then there was another man from the First World War that was killed in a plane wreck and had Ruth, born 1915. Then Ruth's father was a Jew. And because of the fact that Otto has always claimed her as his own, that she might avoid persecution in Germany. What do you think about that? I'm going to tell you what I think about that. That I think his leaving Germany was the right thing to do. His protecting his daughter was the right thing to do. And of the millions of people that were killed by the fucking cretins of the 20th century, the Nazis, at least she survived. And it was because of Mr. Kuehn. That's what I think of that. And to brandish this person as a Nazi, having recorded this information, is fucking ridiculous. That's what I fucking think of that. And I think her son's, whatever her son was doing, it's quite ironic he has a sister that was actually Jewish. Unfucking believable. It's probably like that. More commentary. Does that sound like... Does a man who protected a woman that was not his daughter by blood from being pointlessly killed because she was a Jew by the German government in the late 1930s, does a man that does that, does he sound like a fucking Nazi? No, he does not sound like a fucking Nazi. That's what I think about that. I mean, at least, yeah. Mrs. Kuehn seems to communicate a little more clearly, I'll give her that much. Okay. So, yeah. That does help. She has no reason to lie here. And, at this stage, I'll tell you right now, at this stage of the war, that we're a month into it, we eventually arrived our troops eventually arrived in Germany, early 1945 to discover the horrors that disgusting government had created. And, they may not at all be aware of just how significant that was. And this is another piece of information they chose to overlook. Also, they chose to overlook the fact there was no evidence that he had sent any signals at all. They ignored the fact that there was evidence that he had double-crossed the Japanese government. But, at the end of the day, and that's why he was released. That's why they didn't keep him for 50 years, because someone looked at the case later and figured out what happened when the hysteria had died down. But just because they were German nationals at the wrong place at the wrong time, their lives were torn. There are plenty of other German nationals that were deported or even displaced from their native country, like Honduras or Guatemala, and put in concentration camps up in Coastal City, Texas. Internment camp, what do you want to call them? Okay, now they're going to talk to Otto Kuehn about his. This is 8 days for his trial, about his mind warping experience. Questioned by whoever. However, he contended there had no more information to add to the statement he already gave to agents, and also insisted his wife, Rachel, had no knowledge whatsoever of his relations with the Japanese consulate. And you know what? That's why she was sent off to Crystal City, Texas, and still deported anyway. The numerous statements overheard between him and Friedel, as previously, were brought to Otto's attention for appropriate explanation. However, he too contended in most cases their German statements have been misinterpreted in the portions where it was indicated that he had not given this office complete information regarding his relations with the consulate and Friedel's previous knowledge of these relations. As mentioned in the reference report, the telephone calls made from Kuhn's residence as well as the beauty shop for the October 94 were obtained. All the questionable calls during that period have been checked and eliminated as having particular bearing on this case. Wow! So even more evidence they weren't doing anything that was really harmful to the United States. The inquiries made in the case are not being set forth since. As indicated, they're not pertinent to the investigation. However, the telephone are being retained in the Honolulu file, which, of course, is either redacted or I haven't seen it. Probably redacted, and I would see a cause for that, actually. They were both photographed, fingerprinted, January 16th. Forwarded to the Bureau for check against possible previous records, which there's no way in hell they're going to find that. Additional photos of these individuals, if there were, but probably wasn't. Copies of the report. All right, now here comes the 19th. We're a week away. And this just basically reiterates the life story, the amounts of money, complete regurgitation of what was discussed before, almost verbatim, if not. Maybe plagiarism was avoided. Here's the Junius again. Here's Breckwridge Long. My dear Mr. Hoover, I acknowledge with thanks received your letter generated addressed to certain activities on the part of the Japanese consular. The department has plans underway for the transfer of the members of the Japanese consular staff, subsequent exchange of American and Japanese personnel's plans of prisoner exchange. It does not seem advisable to take action looking to the prosecution of members of the Japanese consular staff. There's no objection to the questioning of the members. It's important the questioning be done promptly because there, no delay when they do the exchange. The date of departure is not. They don't know yet when they're going to do the exchange. They're fine. The FBI keeps the Japanese wherever they want. And just let us know where you're going to keep them, basically. All right. And here comes confidential informant N. Admiral, whatever his name is, Ed McCarthy. Now, this was written 3 days after the trial. And trial's over. This is January 31st, 42. And McCarthy pipes up and says that the number of ships in the harbor was, substantially correct. Except for he doesn't mention that he was wrong about the submarines, they're going to use those numbers in the prosecution. And they're saying that the trial is going to take place within a week, but Major General, or General, or his rank was Thomas Green here. Major General Thomas Green says it happened on January 28th, so this might be too late. But they did use that. They did use that. Conspiracy to transmit certain writings. And this numbers 2 and 3 is what I believe stuck. That he drove down to the beach, looked at the harbor, got an idea of the number of boats, and then 4 days later walked into the Japanese consulate and told them how many boats were there. Okay, now February 4th. This is about the prosecution of actually... This is from the Department of Justice, about prosecuting the Japanese consulate, because, you know, someone has a hard-on for prosecutions, and they said no, basically. They're not going to do that. This here is a transmission of the actual number of ships and all that stuff that were in the water. And he may have had the month wrong. It may have been February, but this was actually presented at trial. You know, actually, the actual ship movements. Yeah. The trial has never actually been released publicly. Only portions of it, or comments about it. It is observed that while Kuehn's figures were remarkably accurate, the figures regarding the number of submarines were highly inaccurate. As I've said. Due to the location, it's hardly possible to observe the submarines from point... Okay, yeah. I mean, if they're plain sight. All they were able to do is prove that he did own that post office box. They found nothing for the fingerprints, and they're still waiting for the trial. That's number 3 now. Things do calm down. I mean, the basic argument I'm going to make is in these first parts here. Number 4, so he has the date wrong. They weren't tried on January 28th, 1942. His regurgitation of his life story with numerous redactions. I'm still seeing only, you know, if I see a date from June 1940, I'll be interested enough to read it. And we know about the $14,000 in cash. This is what they went with, and they more redactions. This is what witnesses Agent McCarthy, I'm sure, basically what happened. The trial kind of. Well, on November 28th, it was kind of close. You know, this guy's out to get him. Yeah, Mr. Junius Article McCarthy, yeah. And yeah, they're basically saying that, when he sent back the wire that was intercepted, that he was charged. The trial began on February 19th. Colonel Green cannot be officially given out. Restricted, cannot be notified immediately. Advise of these proceedings. Okay. Simultaneous with the transfer of the War Department. Colonel Green said the wire for the verdict of this case had been furnished to no one. I swear to God, man. We I swear to God. See this guy over here? We took him in front of a military commission, and swear to God, they sentenced him to be shot. So I'm gonna shoot him. It's like, what the fuck? Someone's got to know, Anyway, you can't be too secret, Anyway, okay, never mind. That's just a little bit of ridiculousness in here, but anyway, Colonel Green, of the opinion the publicity might also bring about. Oh. Kind of differs with what he said over here. Let's see. What did he say? I don't want to really persecute him. And at the same, he saved the guy's life. So, at the same time, he suggested to the War Department that this verdict be taken up with the State Department and White House prior to execution of the sentence, since reprisals against certain. Okay, he did say that reprisals might result. Colonel Green is an opinion might also bring about the result. Therefore, he suggested that publicity be avoided. He suggests, however, that we may wish to take up this matter directly with Brigadier General Lee. Yeehaw! General Kramer. Conduct that such a contact be made discreetly made in a manner that the War Department would not be cognizant of our knowledge of the verdict of this case. Hey FBI, I can't tell you that the guy's guilty, but I want to tell you he's guilty, and I want you to contact the War Department and let them know something happened that we don't know this, but might state their relationship with Colonel Green was extremely cordial, and I therefore feel they ever should protect the confidence placed with. For the reference, okay, what is this? Yeah, he's found guilty and sentenced to be shot. For making a good guess of how many boats were in the water, telling it to the nation that eventually attacked our waters. Now, what was the material information the Japanese needed to know? There's a big base over here with a bunch of boats that might benefit them if they bomb them all. Not necessarily how many boats were in the water, and maybe they would feel that their bombing raid was more successful if they knew they happened to pick a day in which there were more boats in the harbor than there usually were. But that's about it. So, and that's but again, letter of the law, you can go ahead. And then they went ahead because as their spying on the guy showed, they thought he knew more. There was actually stated belief in here that, certainly we know that he's not telling us everything, and certainly we don't know everything all about the activities. I think it's number 2 actually. But since we got him on the letter of the law, let's just go ahead and try him, and they did. They got him. And I'll tell you this, the remainder of the focus of this is all on, wait, what's this? Reiteration. What happened before. July 10th. Now, according to information received on G2, reliable sources indicated that a couple identified as Mr. and Mrs. Friedel, apparently German, frequently and secretly approached the Japanese consul. That's early. But then again, starting at the beginning of January 1940, they started to need some money. They may have thought about, but they had no reason to approach them until actually July. Okay, so I think I've pretty much covered all this. What happens necessary here is then this next area actually march forward, as already described by General Green, but not exactly, but roughly and closely enough. Basically, starting in early March, J. Edgar Hoover keeps trying to find out what's going to be done with Kuehn, because he was sentenced to be shot, and they're wondering why he hasn't been shot. Meanwhile, Green, who has some power to decide, and he really is against the death penalty, but he decided to overlook that prohibition of the death penalty in this case because he was convinced that Kuehn, if Kuehn wasn't involved, the Japanese would never have attacked. I think it's just nonsense. Anyway, so now the FBI is now pressuring to get this death sentence to actually be carried out, which is not their job. Their job is to investigate. Now, okay, so this is a memorandum for the president here. And they want to see what's the policy. Now they're talking about what they're going to do with Kita. FDR wants to know, what does the Secretary of State think? What do you think? I'm inclined to think that Kita, on arrival in the continent, should be kept incommunicado and not placed with other diplomats. Plenty of food, but no communications in or out until the exchange. Right. They agree with that. And then they tell Mr. Hoover, they actually want more information to decide what they're going to do with Kuehn. You start talking about all the atrocities that are happening in Germany, and suddenly they're talking about Kuehn and how he wanted to be part of it. That's a bit slanted, I will say, Mr. Shevers. This is the information the president's going to look at and decide what's going to happen to this man's life. They're still trying to figure out, are we going to kill him? Do we get to kill him? Can we kill him yet? Can we kill him yet? And this basically, they're waiting for some kind of... What happens is they end up waiting for... some Supreme Court case, and then they're going to think about what's going to happen, how it applies to Kuehn, and try to apply it. Oh god, just a complete reiteration of their life. And then now here's the contents of a book. Actually, this is actually... No, I had actually attached this to here already. I already had that. Okay. I don't believe that was in the FBI file. Alright, now for number 5. Here he is still. Now this is now in October. Can we kill him? Here's Oscar Cox. Oh, well, we gotta wait for the Supreme Court. This matter is still, Mr. Cox has told, he's gonna snitch on Mr. Cox. See if Mr. Ladd will let him kill him. This is awesome. And then all of a sudden they just say, or nowhere, he's going to be commuted for 50 years. And the matter's closed. You're done. Oh yeah, the Mr. Ladd. Okay, so the Attorney General writes Mr. Ladd. Mr. Hoover, Mr. Ladd gets it. Then Mr. Ladd writes to Mr. Tam. That's E.A. Tam. And Mr. Tam is writing to Mr. Hoover. Then Mr. Hoover goes, well, can you please give me a piece of paper to show me that he's supposed to be commuted? Like, he doesn't believe it. And here's some kind of summary. And these are the charges. Rewriting up the case, and see it's closed. Although to date no official notification has reached this office. was duly convicted, and he hasn't been shot. No disposition sheet has been forwarded to the Bureau to this matter. All right, well, if he's going to be commuted, we're going to go ahead and let them publish an assassination article that we should know better, that he actually was not an Axis agent, or a Nazi agent. Okay, Axis agent. Oops, it leaked. Oops, it leaked, because it wasn't supposed to get out, you know. There were complaints about this. How did this get out? Who's this? Department of Justice. Guilford. I see no reason why this should not be made public. But War Department approval should be obtained. You know, they're just talking back and forth, you know. We're allowed to tell the world about this great victory for democracy. Then they finally approved of what draft could be released as far as newspaper. But there's something, here it was. I remember one of these. Alright, so they weren't so upset. They were just jonesing for the, and they finally released their newspaper reports that now has a grand effect upon the way Mr. Kuehn is seen in the public light. Let's see, where are we at? Our grand... Okay, yeah, I gotta stop. We'll continue.